pushed right up against the edge with nowhere left to fall back. Fang Yi has no choice but to gamble everything. With the demonic presence closing in on him, he throws his entire will into one last desperate effort to force it down before it can swallow him completely. Around Fang Yi, dazzling golden light and deep crimson demonic force smash into each other like two disasters colliding head-on. Standing at the center of that terrifying storm, he clenches his teeth and commands the system to release every ounce of power he possesses, silently staking his life on one final decision. Either he conquers this thing here, or he dies here. The system responds to Fang Yi's order instantly, without even the slightest pause. In the next heartbeat, every cultivation method he has ever mastered activates together, exploding through his body in a massive, terrifying current of raw power. But forcing so many conflicting powers to circulate inside one body at the same time is far from painless. The backlash hits Fang Yi with crushing force, making it feel as though his bones, muscles, and meridians are all being torn apart in different directions. Fang Yi clamps both hands over his head, his expression warping in unbearable pain. The violent energy raging inside him feels ready to tear him apart from within, and all he can do is fight desperately to hold on to the final fragile thread of his consciousness. In the end, even Fang Yi's willpower reaches its limit. His eyes suddenly lose all focus, turning empty and vacant, and a moment later, a devastating eruption of red energy bursts out from his body like an explosion ripping through the depths of the abyss. The system immediately senses the deadly overload tearing through Fang Yi's body. With his life already hanging on the very edge, it activates its emergency protection without delay and triggers the death seal technique to keep him from slipping away completely. One elemental force after another begins to gather around Fang Yi's seemingly lifeless body. Lightning crackles through the darkness, a protective aura seals itself around him, and black chains twist tightly into place, dragging him back from the brink and proving that somehow Fang Yi is still alive. Far down in the abyss, Fang Yi floats silently through the endless darkness until, without warning, his eyes snap open with a fierce red glow. At that exact moment, the system announces that the ancient artifact has been defeated by the combined power of all his cultivation methods. Then the system confirms something almost impossible. The ancient entity has finally submitted. It no longer struggles against Fang Yi's control, and from this moment on, it recognizes him as its new master. The dense black energy surrounding Fang Yi begins to swirl inward, gathering tighter and tighter around him. Layer after layer wraps across his body, gradually taking shape as a sinister suit of armor covered in sharp, threatening spikes. Only after the armor fully forms does the system reveal what this terrifying artifact truly is. The power now covering Fang Yi is none other than the ancient god demon armor. Suspended in the abyss with that ominous armor wrapped around him, Fang Yi radiates a heavy, suffocating darkness. As the turbulent energy finally settles into place, the system grants him a completely new ability born from the ancient power he has just conquered. That new ability is a hidden technique called Dark Torrent. It comes from the same source as the ancient god demon armor, and the instant it enters Fang Yi's mind, he understands it completely, as though the technique had always been part of him. Wanting to feel the power now flowing through him, Fang Yi slowly tightens his armored hand into a fist. That single, simple movement releases a huge wave of dark energy, sending a terrifying shockwave rolling outward across the abyss. As Fang Yi watches the dark power gather and shift around his hand, a strange sense of familiarity rises within him. Black veins pulse across his face, and in a sudden flash of understanding, he realizes he may now have the ability to control the dark tide itself. With this newfound control, Fang Yi is no longer dragged down by the chaotic dark tide beneath him. Instead, he walks across it, as if it were solid ground, and even more astonishingly, the destructive force obeys his command, pulling back the moment he wills it to retreat. Fang Yi remembers how his old dark attribute used to feel whenever he called upon it. In the past, each use constantly consumed his stamina and spiritual power, turning that strength into both a weapon and a heavy burden. But now, the dark attribute moves around him almost like a trained beast waiting for its master's command. As the shadowy energy coils and circles in his palm, Fang Yi looks at it with steady confidence and declares that it will never drag him down again. After spending enough time in the abyss, Fang Yi finally decides there is no reason to remain there any longer. With calm control and barely any effort, he snaps his fingers, preparing to leave that dark and silent place behind. As Fang Yi begins to depart, a thought quietly passes through his mind. He has no way of knowing how much time has gone by outside, and he suspects that his sudden disappearance may have already thrown the world beyond the abyss into complete disorder. At the headquarters of the Xia Kingdom Spirit Association, Ye Xiao slams both fists onto his desk in a burst of rage. Beside him, Gu Yuru stays silent, watching quietly as the president's anger continues to rise. President Ye Xiao turns his fury toward the elders from the combat zone, his voice filled with accusation. They brought Fang Yi, the entomber, with them on the expedition. But when everything was over, they failed to bring him back alive. Yi Xiao harshly condemns them for failing to protect even a single junior pioneer, despite their long years of cultivation and all the best resources the nation had poured into them. Under that heavy accusation, Elder Wu can only lower his head in silent shame. The president demands to know whether they are truly worthy of the positions they hold. After depending on Fang Yi to escape with their own lives, how could they possibly face the Jia kingdom now that Fang Yi was the one left behind? Outside the office, Galan stands still, clearly hearing every word from inside. After listening long enough to understand the full weight of Yi Xiao's anger, she finally decides that staying silent is no longer an option. Galan walks straight into the office, stepping into the middle of President Ye Xiao's furious reprimand with her own view of what happened. Nearby, Elder Wu and Elder Zhang sit with heavy faces, looking completely drained by the weight of their failure. To Galan, Fang Yi was never someone so weak that he would be trapped if he truly wanted to escape. She believes he must have chosen to remain behind because he discovered something extremely important hidden within the abyss. President Ye Xiao does not answer her immediately. He stays silent, his expression tight and unreadable, while Galen's words linger heavily in the tense air of the office. Galan then speaks up fiercely in defense of the veterans standing before him. She reminds Ye Xiao that these people had been fighting on the front lines for the Xia kingdom long before the spiritual energy awakening ever began. She brings up the countless battles they survived, and the comrades they were forced to bury along the way. Fang Yi may be a once-in-a-generation genius, but Galan reminds Ye Xiao that Elder Wu and the others also felt crushing despair when Fang Yi disappeared into the void. Galan insists that if there had been even the smallest chance to save him, Elder Wu and the others would not have hesitated. They would have gladly used their own lives if it meant bringing that young pioneer back safely. President Ye Xiao is still not willing to accept that explanation. He snaps back that Fang Yi is the very core of the crucial captain plan, then demands to know whether Galan can truly guarantee he survived when even their predecessors were never able to escape the dark tide. Overwhelmed by anger and frustration, Ye Xiao shouts that Fang Yi's value to the Jie kingdom is greater than theirs. Gu Yuru quickly tries to calm him, but Galan refuses to retreat, challenging the assumption that falling into the dark tide must automatically mean death. Galan locks her fierce gaze onto Ye Xiao and pushes directly against his reasoning. If Fang Yi is truly already dead, then why should one missing pioneer matter more than the entire Star God combat zone that managed to survive? She then asks him bluntly whether doubting Fang Yi and dismissing the combat zone means he believes the Spirit Association alone can protect the Jia Kingdom without relying on the strength of their military forces. Realizing that Galan has gone too far, Elder Wu suddenly raises his voice and shouts her name. His command cuts sharply through the room as he orders her to stop speaking and stand down immediately. The sharp tension filling the office finally starts to ease. President Ye Xiao releases a long, weary sigh, the rage slowly fading from his face, and admits that his earlier words came from frustration. In the end, he acknowledges that Galan is right. Now, looking visibly exhausted, Ye Xiao turns his attention to the real crisis in front of them and asks what they should do next. If news of Fang Yi's disappearance spreads, he fears it could trigger panic across the nation and give their enemies the confidence to attack. To prevent the Xia kingdom from sinking into chaos, they choose to lock down every piece of information about Fang Yi's disappearance. The entire matter is placed under the highest security classification, leaving no opening for rumors to leak out. 1 week later, inside the Fang family villa, Lin Yiyi's anxiety has only grown stronger with each passing day. The silence throughout the house makes her worry feel even heavier and harder to ignore. Her cousin, Fang Yi, still has not returned from the mysterious domain. With every hour that passes, his absence feels less like a normal delay and more like a warning that something may have gone terribly wrong. When Lin Yiyi hears movement near the door, hope immediately lights up across her face, and she calls out for her cousin without hesitation. But as the door opens, the person who steps in is not Fang Yi at all, it is only her mother. Her mother notices that Fang Yi has already been gone for far too long and points out that his silence has dragged on quite a while. In a gentle voice, she suggests that Lin Yiyi should try giving him a call. Lin Yiyi explains that this time is not like the previous times at all. The place Fang Yi entered is far too dangerous, and on top of that, there is no signal there, which means an ordinary phone call would never be able to reach him. Her mother agrees that even considering all of those circumstances, the situation still feels abnormal. For Fang Yi to remain completely unreachable for such a long time is not something they can simply dismiss as nothing. Then her mother asks about Lin Yiyi's new assignment as Tai City's captain. Lin Yi explains that she had been waiting for Fang Yi to return so they could do a trial run together. But now that he is missing, even the association has suddenly fallen silent. That strange silence only makes Lin Yi's unease grow deeper. Nothing like this has ever happened before. In the past, Fang Yi always came back quickly, but this time Captain Su knows nothing, and Galen has not answered even one of her messages. Unable to keep sitting around and waiting, Lin Yi suddenly tells her startled mother that she is going out. The decision comes so abruptly that her mother barely has enough time to react. Lin Yi rushes through the pouring rain, her thoughts spiraling more wildly with every step she takes. If something truly happened to her cousin, then the entire Xia kingdom could be thrown into turmoil, and the captain plan itself might collapse together with him. Lin Yi pressed a hand near her chest, trying to steady the anxious feeling tightening there. She kept reminding herself that someone as overwhelming as Fang Yi shouldn't be in any real danger. Tai City was still intact. The streets hadn't collapsed into complete chaos, and for the time being, everything around her looked almost unnervingly calm. But that thin layer of reassurance broke apart almost immediately. Far above the city's skyscrapers, the dark storm clouds suddenly flashed with violent purple light, and massive arcs of unstable lightning tore wildly across the sky, twisting and branching as if the heavens themselves had been ripped open. Lin Yi stopped dead in place, her pupils shrinking as she stared upward in disbelief. All around her, people on the street began screaming and running, scattering in every direction as something like a blazing meteor ripped through the storm clouds and plunged straight toward Tai City. The moment it struck, a blinding explosion of light burst outward, forcing Lin Yi to throw up both arms and shield her face from the glare. Yet through that violent flash, she felt a familiar pressure spread through the air, and in an instant she understood another ancient throne had descended. From the point of impact, an enormous pillar of blue energy roared straight into the sky. Its eerie glow washed over the entire skyline, making the rain-drenched buildings and streets look as though the whole city had been swallowed inside a supernatural beacon. Not far away from a higher vantage point overlooking the city, several captains stood motionless in the rain. Their dark silhouettes were outlined against the storm as they quietly watched the towering blue pillar rise in the distance. The artifact's arrival didn't only catch the eyes of Tai City's defenders. In the darker corners of the city, hidden figures began to stir one after another. Red eyes glowed from the shadows, cruel smiles slowly spread across their faces, and to them this newly descended throne was not merely a mystery, it was a bloody opportunity to seize power. Meanwhile, inside that chaotic blue void, Fang Yi was still moving through the strange space, leaping from one floating fragment of debris to the next. A dark red aura clung around his body like flickering living flame, but the endless domain surrounding him still felt like a maze with no entrance and no exit. No matter how far he pushed forward, he still couldn't lock onto the coordinates that would return him to reality, and the frustration weighing on his chest grew heavier with every passing moment. Fang Yi lowered his gaze toward the shadows spreading beneath his feet, fully aware that it was the ancient god-demon armor he had already subdued. His eyes sharpened, and with a cold, questioning look, he asked whether even it was struggling to find a way out of this place. But no answer came. The system stayed exactly as silent as before, giving him nothing. Not a voice, not a signal, not even the slightest hint that could explain what had gone wrong or where the exit might be. Fang Yi's brows drew together as several possibilities crossed his mind. Perhaps forcibly dragging the ancient god-demon armor out of this mysterious domain had triggered some unpredictable butterfly effect. Or, more troubling than that, maybe some unseen force was intentionally keeping both of them trapped inside this space. Just then, the dark aura coiled around him suddenly flickered, pulsing as if it had reacted to his thoughts. Fang Yi immediately turned his attention toward it and questioned it, but the shadowy figure hurriedly shook its head, almost anxiously denying that it had caused any of this. Fang Yi's gaze narrowed even further as another doubt surfaced in his mind. He asked why the entity had suddenly lost the ability to speak, especially when it had clearly used a human voice before to lure him toward the dark tide. The shadow could only tremble where it was, its unstable form wavering in the air as if it understood every word, but had no way to respond. No explanation came from it, only an uneasy silence that made the situation feel even stranger. Fang Yi exhaled quietly and decided not to force the issue any longer. Whatever had happened to the armor's voice would have to wait, because right now, their only true priority was finding a way back out of this endless domain. At that moment, the red glow in Fang Yi's eyes suddenly sharpened, and his expression changed. Beyond the surrounding chaos, he finally sensed something faint, a thin, fragile connection leading back toward the outside world. Back in reality, the storm clouds above Tai City split apart as a massive beam of blue energy came crashing down from the sky. It slammed into the city with terrifying force, marking the arrival of yet another mysterious throne. Heavy rain poured over the streets while terrified pedestrians fled in every direction, but Lin Yiyi pushed against the chaos instead of running away. Her figure cut through the curtain of rain as she sprinted straight toward the place where the energy had fallen. Lin Yiyi knew exactly how dangerous the timing was. Fang Yi was missing, and now a throne had suddenly appeared in Tai City. If this wasn't handled quickly, the entire city could be thrown into disorder. Even with the risks clear in her mind, she decided she had to investigate the situation herself. Her shoes splashed hard through puddles as she raced across the wet pavement, rain streaming around her with every step. But before she could make it much farther, her instincts suddenly flared, warning her that someone nearby was lying in wait to strike. A sinister-looking man carrying a knife stepped out onto the road ahead, blocking her path with a smug, unsettling grin. He addressed her as Miss Lin with far too much confidence, and Lin Yiyi stopped at once, shifting her stance defensively as she demanded to know who he was. Then, through the curtain of rain, more armed thugs began emerging one after another, cutting off the paths around her. Lin Yiyi swept her gaze across them and gave a cold, mocking remark, calling them fools for daring to wander into Tai City at a chaotic time like this. Her eyes turned sharp as she demanded to know what they were after. But before any of them could give an answer, Lin Yiyi moved first, releasing a fierce wave of green spiritual energy that blasted outward and violently drove back the attackers closing in on her. Without wasting even a single motion, Lin Yiyi shaped that green energy into thick, twisting vines. The vines shot forward through the rain and wrapped tightly around one of the older thugs, binding him in place before he had any chance to react. She followed up instantly, driving a powerful kick straight into his chest. The blow knocked the breath out of him, and while he was still trapped in the vines, Lin Yiyi pressed him for answers with a fierce, commanding glare. The man was thrown down hard onto the rain-slick pavement, his body hitting the ground with a heavy crash before skidding across the wet surface from the force of Lin Yiyi's attack. After watching their first move fall apart so quickly, another thug reacted without delay. He lifted a whistle to his mouth and blew a sharp signal through the storm, calling for reinforcements the moment he realized they needed more numbers. Almost at once, the entire area came alive with movement. More enemies appeared from the shadows from narrow side streets and even from the rooftops above, each carrying different weapons as they moved in and completely surrounded Lin Yi. The center of the ambush, their leader finally stepped forward, a red bandana tied around his head. He raised his massive sword with an arrogant tilt of his chin and pointed the blade directly at Lin Yiyi. The leader sneered at her, dismissing Lin Yiyi as nothing more than a little girl borrowing fame from the Entomber's reputation. Then, without the slightest hesitation, he gave the order for all of his men to rush her at once. A bright green light began burning in Lin Yiyi's eyes as she glared back at the crowd around her. Instead of showing fear, she asked if they were really looking down on her, then declared that this was the perfect chance to test the multi-target combat training she had been practicing lately. In the very next instant, Lin Yiyi pushed her spiritual energy outward, and countless sharp whip-like green vines lashed through the rain in every direction like a storm of living blades. The vines struck with frightening speed, catching several attackers in midair and yanking them off balance before they could complete their assault. At the same time, Lin Yiyi kept moving up close, delivering quick, precise kicks to anyone who managed to break through and get near her. With one sharp movement, Lin Yiyi commanded the vines to tighten. The enemies caught in their bindings were squeezed even harder, leaving them hanging helplessly in the air as they struggled and twisted against the crushing restraint. The older thug writhed inside the vines, cursing through clenched teeth as panic finally spread across his face. Only then did he realize the truth. Lin Yiyi's unique wood attribute wasn't merely restraining their bodies, it was also actively suppressing the flow of their spiritual energy. Now that she had taken full control of the fight's rhythm, Lin Yiyi pulled the bound thugs together with her vines. One by one, the struggling men were dragged into a single tangled cluster, completely caught in her grasp. Then, with a powerful sweeping motion, she hurled the entire group through the rain-soaked air. As their bodies went flying across the street, Lin Yiyi shouted for them to get lost, her voice cutting sharply through the storm. But before she could ease her guard, a sharp projectile formed from dark purple energy suddenly tore through the falling rain. It sliced toward her with deadly speed, cutting a dangerous line straight through the storm. Lin Yiyi's expression shifted the instant she sensed what it was. This wasn't ordinary fire. It was a flame ability mixed with a corrosive dark attribute. Normal flames would struggle to burn through her strengthened vines, But this dark fire carried a completely different level of danger. She immediately tried to dodge, twisting her body out of the attack's path. But even with her quick reaction, the dark energy still grazed past her and carved sharply into her arm. Lin Yi gasped at the sudden burst of pain, her eyes widening as fresh blood spilled from the cut. The blood quickly mixed with the rainwater running down her skin, leaving a red trail against the storm. The instant the bandana-wearing leader and the remaining thugs saw that she had been injured, they seized their chance. They lunged at her from every direction at once, weapons raised, trying to finish her before she could recover. Just before their blades could close in on her, Lin Yi released another surge of green light. In a flash, a glowing barrier formed around her body, wrapping her in protective spiritual energy. The barrier erupted outward with explosive force, slamming into every attacker and sending them flying back across the rain-soaked street. Standing in the center of the green glow, Lin Yi coldly mocked them, saying that even 9 grown men still couldn't bring down a single student. The leader landed and steadied himself on the slippery pavement, his feet sliding slightly beneath him. But instead of looking furious, a calculating glint appeared in his eyes as he quietly studied the situation in front of him. He realized that even after Lin Yi had been pushed into such a dangerous position, Fang Yi still hadn't appeared to save her. That single fact was enough for him to confidently conclude that Fang Yi truly was no longer in Tai City. With his real objective already achieved, the leader immediately ordered his men to retreat. One after another, the thugs leaped away into the storm and disappeared through the rain, leaving Lin Yi standing alone in the street as she caught her breath and realized she had walked straight into their trap. Frustration surged through Lin Yi, and she slammed her fist hard against a nearby wall. By fighting so desperately to protect herself, she had accidentally confirmed the one thing their hidden enemies wanted to know most. Fang Yi was absent. Lin Yi cursed herself for being careless, her expression tightening with regret. Now that the enemy knew the truth, they would definitely return with better preparation next time, and she understood that she needed a plan immediately before the situation spiraled completely out of control. But before Lin Yi could fully sort through her racing thoughts, the stormy sky above Tai City lit up once again. In the distance, a massive pillar of golden light pierced through the clouds and crashed down somewhere within the city. The instant Lin Yi finally realized what that mysterious glow had been trying to communicate, the look on her face shifted in a heartbeat. The confusion in her eyes vanished, replaced not by panic, but by a sharp, unwavering determination, as though the answer had snapped into place and she had already chosen the path she needed to take. Lin Yi didn't allow herself even a moment of hesitation. She pulled out her phone at once, her fingers moving quickly and accurately, despite the rain, the pressure, and the danger closing in around her. With urgent focus, she made the call and demanded to be connected to Captain Su as quickly as possible. At almost the exact same time, Captain Su was still holding her post in the pouring rain, standing guard near the barricades around the newly descended throne. The restricted zone around her was locked down tight, every corner tense with danger, and when she answered Lin Yi's call, her first question was whether Yi had been attacked. Lin Yi told her that she had driven the attackers off for the moment, but her voice stayed heavy and serious because she knew this was only a temporary pause. The real truth was painfully clear. Every enemy hiding in the shadows was aiming for the same thing: the throne. Then, in a low and grave voice, Lin Yi revealed what the enemy had already figured out. In their eyes, the moment the entomber disappeared, Tai City stopped being a city under true protection and became a place with no real guardian left. As those words reached her, Captain Su stood motionless beneath the rain, her body stiffening as the full weight of Yi's warning sank in, leaving her unable to answer immediately. Captain Su slowly shifted her gaze toward the sealed-off forest ahead, her expression tightening as cold rain streamed down her face and uniform. On the other side of the call, Lin Yi's voice grew calmer, steadier, and far more resolute, carrying the weight of a decision she had clearly made and could no longer back away from. The young pioneer stated that she would go to the artifact herself and make it acknowledge her as its new master. It was a bold, dangerous declaration, reckless enough to make anyone's heart clench. But beneath her words was the desperation of someone who understood that protecting the city might require walking straight into the greatest danger. By the time Lin Yi reached the restricted site, the storm still hadn't weakened, and sheets of rain continued hammering down around her. Standing before the oppressive aura of the artifact ahead, she spoke with firm determination, saying that if she wanted to protect Tai City, then there truly was no other choice left for her. The moment Captain Su realized what Lin Yi was planning, she rushed forward through the rain and pulled her into a tight, desperate embrace. Holding Yi close beneath the cold downpour, Captain Su scolded her for being foolish, her voice shaking with both fear and anger. She warned her that this newly descended artifact carried the metal attribute, which meant its power was terrifyingly sharp and lethal, far beyond the anomalies they had faced before, possibly 100 times more dangerous. Captain Su forced Lin Yi to understand that her wood attribute would offer almost no defense against a metal attribute of power of that level. Facing it directly would be no different from stepping willingly toward death. Tears gathered in Captain Su's eyes as she pleaded with Yi not to sacrifice herself, begging her not to throw away her life on something that looked less like bravery and more like a suicide mission. But that painful, emotional moment was broken apart almost immediately. A guard came sprinting toward them through the rain in a state of panic, his face drained of color, his breathing ragged, and the urgency in his voice making it obvious that another disaster had just struck. The guard quickly reported that large numbers of underground organizations and neutral factions were rapidly converging on their location. Worse still, even registered pioneers had started pouring into Tai City in waves, turning the crisis into a disaster pressing in from every possible direction at once. Meanwhile, in the shadowy corners of Tai City, countless rogue pioneers and mutants were gathering together like a storm about to burst. The rumor that the Entomber had died had spread through them like wildfire, stripping away their fear of both the military and the Spirit Association. To them, Tai City had become an open battlefield with no law, no order, and no one strong enough to stop them. Driven blind by greed, they prepared to rush the restricted zone, convinced that whoever claimed the throne would become the next absolute ruler of Jia. At the same time, far away from Tai City's growing chaos, a rescue team passed through a swirling portal and stepped into the mysterious domain. Their objective was simple but urgent. They had to find the exact location where Fang Yi had disappeared. Elder Wu and Ye Xiao emerged into a vast white desert, the pale sand stretching endlessly beneath an unusually clear sky. The brightness of the place felt almost unnatural, making the entire domain seem empty, silent, and strangely unreal, as if they had walked into a world that had been wiped clean. Elder Wu confirmed that this was indeed the same place where the dark tide had once swallowed the Entomber. But as his eyes swept across the transformed landscape, confusion slowly appeared on his face, because the scene before him no longer matched the terrifying place he remembered at all. He could not make sense of it. The oppressive dark energy that had once filled this domain, along with the ancient tombstones that carried such a horrifying aura, had all disappeared completely. Everything was gone so cleanly that not even the faintest trace seemed to have been left behind. Then, without the slightest warning, the sky above them tore open. From that crack, a terrifying rush of dark energy exploded outward, rolling across the air like a black tidal wave, and every member of the rescue team stared upward in shock as that overwhelming force poured down before their eyes. From inside the dark rift, Fang Yi suddenly fell through and landed on the white sand below. His arrival was abrupt and powerful, cutting through the silence of the pale desert and sending a wordless shock through everyone watching. Even Fang Yi looked surprised to find himself in this strange place. He had only been tracing the energy signature of the newly descended throne, using that thread of power as a guide to return to reality, and he clearly had not expected the trail to bring him here first. When Elder Wu and Ye Xiao saw the golden aura surrounding Fang Yi, their eyes widened at once. It was him. Fang Yi was alive, but what stunned them even more was the spiritual power surging from his body, a force so immense and transformed that it seemed to have surpassed Elder Wu's own strength by an almost unbelievable distance. Elder Wu felt the pressure of Fang Yi's aura spreading through the air and immediately understood that the young pioneer had experienced a staggering transformation. The power surrounding him had already climbed far beyond the third level of the Jinggang realm, reaching a height that should have been impossible so soon. When Fang Yi heard someone calling his name, he slowly turned his head toward the direction of the voice, his attention shifting with calm alertness. His glowing red eye fixed on the figures descending from above, and as they approached through the air, he recognized them as elders from the combat zone. Ye Xiao was the first to step forward, his expression carrying both warmth and clear relief. He reached out and firmly took Fang Yi's hand in greeting, as if the simple sight of Fang Yi standing alive before him had finally lifted a heavy burden from his chest. He introduced himself as Ye Xiao, the president of the Ixi Nation Spirit Association, speaking with a sincerity that was impossible to miss. Then he told Fang Yi that they had come all this way for one purpose, to bring the Entomber back home. Fang Yi accepted the greeting with a calm expression, though his thoughts were already moving quietly beneath the surface. Since he had never heard Ye Xiao's name before, he naturally guessed that this man must have taken up the position during the time he had been missing. Ye Xiao suggested that the strange spatial disturbances were likely connected to the newly descended throne. Fang Yi then explained that after being trapped inside the domain, he had wandered aimlessly without any way to locate Earth's coordinates until by chance he encountered their rescue group. A sudden urgency tightened inside Fang Yi, and he immediately asked to return to Tai City without even a moment's delay. Elder Wu and the veteran pioneers agreed at once, their faces bright with eagerness, proud that they had the chance to personally assist such an extraordinary young pioneer. No one wasted any more time. The group began pouring their spiritual energy together, and before long, a huge blue portal opened in front of them, its swirling light expanding rapidly as the path back to the real world took shape. As Fang Yi stepped into the portal and moved back toward reality, an intense sense of dread suddenly swept over him. A dark premonition struck deep in his heart, making him fear that his cousin, Lin Yi, might be facing deadly danger, and all he could do was hope with everything he had that the feeling was only his imagination. Inside the swirling blue void, the group rushed forward at incredible speed, streams of light twisting and flowing around them from every direction. Elder Wu kept his expression controlled, forcing himself to remain silent, even as questions pressed heavily inside his mind. Still, Elder Wu could not stop thinking about what he had just witnessed. How had Fang Yi survived the catastrophic dark tide at all? And even more unbelievable than that, how had he come out of it with such a tremendous breakthrough in cultivation? Far from the portal, Tai City had already descended into complete disorder. Heavy rain continued pouring over the city, drenching the streets, while smoke drifted through shattered roads and broken buildings, like the aftermath of a battlefield. Across those ruined streets, the defending pioneers were fighting with everything they had left. They stood their ground desperately, trying to stop the overwhelming tide of hostile invaders that kept flooding into the city from every side. At the front line of the battle, the Spirit Association's lead official raised a golden shield, just in time to block the attack of a cloaked rogue. As the enemy sneered and mocked their stubborn resistance, the official's expression darkened. He could see clearly just how arrogant these underground factions had become, willing to tear down the entire order of the city simply to seize power for themselves. With a fierce movement, the lead official released a blazing golden shockwave that hurled the attackers backward. He immediately ordered his people to launch a counterattack, but right in the middle of the chaos, a frantic report reached him. The defensive perimeter surrounding the newly descended throne had already been broken through. Realizing just how dangerous the situation had become, the official commanded his subordinates to hurry and reinforce the squads holding the throne's front line. He declared that he would defend this position alone, then raised his power once more and unleashed a barrage of golden flames, cutting off the assassins as they leapt toward him. When one of his subordinates hesitated, clearly unwilling to abandon him there, the official snapped a stern command and ordered them to obey. Then he touched his earpiece, and his expression hardened, not only with determination but with a fresh glimmer of hope. He revealed that crucial news had arrived. As long as they could survive this wave of attacks, victory would be guaranteed. Elsewhere, in the rain-soaked streets of Tai City, two defending pioneers were barely managing to hold their position against the enemy forces. Just then, Wang Lan and Song Yiming appeared through the downpour, and the exhausted defenders turned toward them with hopeful eyes, asking whether headquarters had finally sent reinforcements. Song Yiming calmly explained that every pioneer had their attention fixed on Tai City's exposed resources, now that the city appeared vulnerable. Wang Lan, however, wore a faint smile as he spoke, making it clear that they had not come for those reasons. They were here to repay a favor. Without saying anything more, Song Yiming thrust his fist forward and unleashed a blazing punch straight into the attackers. Flames roared through the street in an explosive wave, engulfing the enemy forces and scattering them in a devastating blast. As the enemies crumpled beneath the force of the attack, they laughed at how pathetically weak the invaders really were. They mocked them for struggling so desperately over the entomber, a man all of those fools believed had already died. Song Yiming then stated coldly that a weak, chaotic, and disorganized mob like this had no right to even dream of taking control of the newly descended throne's immense power. When the opposing pioneers arrogantly shouted that the metal attribute throne belonged to them, Wang Lan didn't bother answering with words. Instead, he released his water abilities in a violent strike, and in the next instant, the enemies were frozen solid where they stood, their bodies turning into rigid ice sculptures beneath the rain. The wave of invasion soon reached Fang Yi's private villa. Outside the residence, a group of armed thugs gathered together and quickly realized they had discovered the entomber's home. One scarred thug laughed with greedy excitement, already imagining Fang Yi's possessions falling into his hands, and his expression became even more disturbing when he mentioned the two defenseless women inside. But before the thugs could force their way through the doors, a haunting melody suddenly floated through the rain. Nearby, a pioneer raised a glowing green flute and began to play, sending out rippling waves of magical sound. The power struck the invaders immediately, making them scream and dance uncontrollably, their faces twisting in terror as they realized they had been trapped by terrifying mind control. The person who stepped in was Moon City pioneer Captain Chen Ruo. She stood calmly on a nearby rock, looking down at the struggling thugs with cold, unreadable eyes, her posture steady despite the storm around her. As Chen Ruo watched the thugs writhe helplessly under the control of her melody, her thoughts drifted back to something her mother had once taught her. People who were weak but still consumed by endless greed could, in their own way, become truly frightening. At the foot of the restricted mountain, a massive burst of blue energy suddenly erupted upward into the storm-dark sky. The brilliant surge tore through the falling rain, instantly catching the attention of countless rogue pioneers swarming in the nearby area. Above the gathered crowd, an invader wrapped in roaring flames floated high in the air. He laughed wildly into the storm, overflowing with confidence as he declared that the throne was already his. Without warning, a blinding pillar of fierce blue radiance drops straight into the restricted zone, splitting the air as if some heavenly punishment has come crashing down from above. The instant that light touches the ground, a savage shockwave detonates outward, smashing into the advancing invaders and driving them back before they can force their way any closer. The rogues freeze in terror because the pressure bearing down on their bodies is unmistakable. It is the crushing, overwhelming power of the metal attribute throne. In that moment, the invaders understand that the artifact is not simply defending itself anymore. Its power is strong enough to repel even the most dangerous fighters among them, which means someone inside Tai City has already reached the throne first. Fury spreads through the bloodthirsty crowd like wildfire. Their eyes turn vicious as they glare toward the city below, deciding that the Spirit Association must be wiped out, and everyone connected to the entomber must be slaughtered before Tai City can truly fall into their hands. Then, through the roar of flames, screams, and chaos, a calm voice cuts across the battlefield with chilling clarity. Fang Yi asks who has been calling his name before the crowd can even turn properly. His figure appears behind them without the slightest warning, standing there as dark red energy coils around his body like a living storm, wrapping him in an aura so terrifying that the air itself seems to tighten. The invading group goes completely stiff, as if every muscle in their bodies has locked up at once. Their faces lose all color, and the confidence they had just moments ago is swallowed by pure fear. One by one, their voices begin to shake, and they can barely force the words out as they recognize the man they were certain had already died, the entomber. Fang Yi calmly lifts his hand, and a swirling dark red portal opens beside him like the mouth of an abyss. From within it, his enormous sword slowly slides into his grasp, its presence alone making the atmosphere feel heavier. As he activates the Great Hell Saber technique he has only just acquired, a cold, murderous pressure spreads from him. The invaders can only stare in horror, frozen in place, while a terrifying killing intent gathers around him like a storm about to descend. Fang Yi does not waste a single breath on hesitation. He tightens his grip around the massive blade, plants himself firmly on the battlefield, and swings once with overwhelming force. From that single motion, a gigantic slash wrapped in blazing fire surges forward, tearing across the ground and carving through everything in its path with horrifying speed and power. The instant Fang Yi's attack connects, the battlefield is swallowed by a towering eruption of flame and dark energy. The rogue pioneers are caught inside before they even have a chance to scream, their figures disappearing into the violent blast. In the space of a single breath, the entire horde is wiped out completely, leaving only scorched earth, waves of unbearable heat, and fierce flames crackling across the ruined ground. As the raging fire begins to die down and the smoke rolls across the battlefield, Fang Yi slowly turns his eyes toward the restricted mountain peak in the distance. The spiritual fluctuations coming from that direction feel far too familiar, and his expression immediately sharpens. His earlier instinct had been correct. His cousin, Lin Yiyi, is somewhere on that peak, and she is attempting to seize the dangerous new throne. At the very top of the mountain, far above the chaos below, Lin Yiyi hangs suspended inside a glowing green sphere of energy. Directly before her stands the intimidating metal attribute throne, radiating such a crushing pressure that the entire summit seems to tremble beneath its weight. The air around her looks tense and unstable, as if the peak itself is struggling to withstand the throne's power. Even with that terrifying pressure pressing down on her, Lin Yiyi has already stepped into the throne's domain and shows no intention of retreating. Her resolve is firm, almost painfully absolute. She is prepared to put her life on the line, and even sacrifice everything she has, if that is what it takes to protect Tai City from the disaster unfolding around it. Below the peak, Captain Su is pouring every ounce of strength she has into keeping the protective barrier around Lin Yiyi intact. Sweat streams down her face, and her body is visibly shaking under the strain. but she refuses to let the defense break. Even if maintaining it means burning through her own life force, she is determined to shield Yi until her spiritual power is completely exhausted, silently praying that the young pioneer can succeed. Suddenly, Fang Yi tears straight through the green barrier and enters the protected space by force, the impact instantly throwing the defensive formation into chaos. Captain Su's eyes widen in alarm, and she shouts out as the barrier trembles violently around them. She can hardly process what is happening, desperately trying to understand who could have slipped through their perimeter so easily. The breach immediately sends a violent backlash rippling through the barrier. That force surges straight into Captain Su before she has any chance to defend herself. Her body jerks sharply from the impact. Her breath catches in her throat, and in the very next moment, she coughs up a mouthful of blood. As Captain Su's strength finally gives way and her body starts to fall, her blonde guard rushes in and catches her before she can hit the ground. But the moment the guard lifts her gaze and sees the figure standing inside the barrier, shock washes over her face. Her voice falters in disbelief as she stammers out the title she never expected to say again. The Entomber. Fang Yi turns his attention to Captain Su and greets her with a calmness that feels almost unreal amid the chaos surrounding them. Captain Su can only stare back at him, completely stunned, her expression wavering between disbelief and overwhelming relief. At that moment, she realizes that Tai City's greatest protector has truly returned, seeing that the shattered barrier has left his cousin exposed to the dangerous forces around the peak. Fang Yi reacts without a second of delay. He extends one hand, and swirling red energy pours out from him, reaching toward Lin Yi as she begins to fall. Before the violent power surrounding the summit can swallow her, that red energy catches her gently in midair. Fang Yi's immense power quickly spreads around Lin Yi, surrounding her body in a huge glowing sphere of protective energy. Inside that shield, she is completely sealed away from the chaotic elements raging across the mountain peak. The deadly pressure of the metal attributed throne still looms above her, but Fang Yi's barrier now stands between her and that overwhelming force.